British Empire actually, just so you know, slavers, they gave people that look like me their surnames, right?
Kenya benefits hugely from its colonial inheritance. Britain just gave in 2022 £100 million of investment, but Kenya is still one of the top three. Well, my family were born in Kenya and they still live in Kenya and they call it Kenya. I don't need to lecture from BLM activists on how to pronounce Kenya.
I'm not going to lie, there are not many things that are more satisfying to me than seeing a BLM activist who's trying to smear all of British history as just evil and immoral get shut down by truth, history, and facts. That's what we're about to watch right now.
British Empire actually, just so you know, slavers, they gave people that look like me their surnames, right? So we've also got the British education system that starts everything from slavery. We've got the fact that the British Empire made sure that they named black people with their surnames. So all of these things can be traced back, and of course we have the evidence, 200 years of clear-cut evidence.
Hold on a second, hold on.
I'm answering your question. I'm answering your question, Rafe. You just spoke about the fact that why we keep focusing on the British. I'm telling you why. I've just told you British education system, and I've also told you that
why aren't we holding to account the people who were taking part in the 1950s Mau Mau uprising?
And we
know
should
who these people are. We're not talking about things from 200 years ago. And let's just also acknowledge, you know, in the decades after independence in 1963, Kenya became the success story of Africa. Without any mineral resources, it became the economic and political showpiece for Africa. Why? Because of its British colonial inheritance. Its parliamentary democracy, the constitutional separation of powers, its British-based military, civil service and police, all of the institutions. And for 45 years, thanks to that British heritage and the leadership of President Kenyatta, Kenya became a showpiece. The last 15 years haven't been that bad, but Kenya haven't been that good. But Kenya is still one of the top three. Well, my family were born in Kenya and they still live in Kenya and they call it Kenya. I don't need to lecture from BLM activists on how to pronounce Kenya.
I'm pretty sure at this moment she knew she made a fool of herself, but was too proud to actually admit it, so she just doubled down.
No, it's Kenya. That's the British way of explaining it.
Well,
that's the difference, right? So you were born in Kenya. I wasn't born in Kenya. I was born here.
But my
British pronunciation is actually
family
Kenya.
were actually. Thanks so much.
Well, the British education system tells you that you should pronounce it as Kenya. Just so you know, I went through it.
Thanks so much.
And I'm glad that you told me that, because
it's just like people in the West calling it Mumbai when all Indians say Bombay. All right, we don't need to have this.
This is why it's so important to experience lived experiences. Thank you, Eamon. Sorry.
When you come in here, you were basically saying, look, it's a simple thing to do. It's the right thing.
Yeah.
Charles should say, sorry, that's easy. What I'm learning, listening to both of you,
thank you.
It's not easy.
No, it's not. It's quite convoluted, especially when you address and take in consideration my points as well as Rafe's points. It's very convoluted. And when we talk about benefits, right, so you obviously spoke about the benefits in terms of colonialism, and I find that really uncomfortable because we're kind of missing the main point here. Let me just say something. Can I just finish my point, please? Let's just talk about benefits, because that's your main point here, right? So in terms of benefits, well, first and foremost, you cannot say that black people benefit from colonialism and slavery. That would actually... Okay, hold on a second. Well, let's just be clear. It's basically, by the same token, you were also saying that, I don't know, Israel benefited Jews and Hitler benefited due to the Holocaust. You're basically saying that in terms of your basic logic. You're also saying that it applies to Israel and Jews and those that were oppressed.
Marxist.
I'm not a Marxist. I'm not. That's your prejudice. But that's your prejudice.
Kenya benefits hugely from its colonial inheritance. Britain just gave in 2022 £100 million of investment. Canada that same year gave £40 million investment. Why? Because of their British Commonwealth associations and British Commonwealth links. The top three countries in Africa for $1 million investments are Nigeria, South Africa and Kenya. What's the common link there? All former British colonies.
A couple of years ago, I probably would have heard what this lady's saying and thought, yeah, that's it, come on. But now I realize that, these woke activists and BLM types are just a bunch of race hustlers. And you can tell this because they're not really concerned with getting the apologies for the sake of justice. They're more concerned with trying to exploit compassion for their own gain. And I realize this because they always talk about colonialism, but the minute you speak about any of the quote-unquote positives or benefits that came from colonialism, they're incapable of holding multiple ideas in their head at one time, right? So they'll say slavery and renaming, etc., etc., but they'll never speak about railroads, that many people in colonies still benefit from today, or the ports and the harbors that countries are still able to use. They won't speak about the influence of British common law on legal systems still to this day. There's a reason why many African countries didn't just throw out all of the British customs like the common law system in Nigeria or many of their traditions, because they find use. Or how about the hospitals that were built? One of my favorite stories about the impact of the British on Africa as a continent is the story of Mary Slessor. Now, she was a Scottish Presbyterian woman who went out to Nigeria. Of course, you had colonial masters who were there doing their business. She went out as a Christian missionary to teach and serve the poor people there. And what she found when she went there was that there was this really evil practice of unaliving twins at birth, literally leaving them by the side of the bush because they believed that they were cursed. Their old spiritual religions had made them believe this was a justified thing. Now, obviously, knowing this was completely evil and heinous, Mary Slessor campaigned to end that practice. And thanks to her, that practice was outlawed and made illegal. And now, Nigeria is actually the country with the highest twin population in the world. And we thank, and we have Mary Slessor, who God used to thank for that. Now, I'm not going to sit here and pretend that everything the British Empire did was out of compassion, right? Of course, all these railroads and ports and harbors and such were built so that it would make it easier for them to, extract wealth and to trade and so on and so forth, which is fine. I'm not making an argument. But the point is that you won't hear them speak about justice across the world. It's literally just the white man bad, the black man good. You'll never hear them speak about the Barbary slave trade, for instance, and they'll never talk about reparations from Northern Africa to Europe, who were enslaving Europeans hundreds of years before the transatlantic slave trade. You'll never hear them speak about that. And the minute you talk about anything that the British Empire has done in a positive lens, they'll bite your head off. So when they're talking about us apologizing and Britain apologizing now for colonialism and such, they're not talking about it because they believe it's about justice sake. They want to capitalize on the guilt, white guilt and white leftist liberal guilt, in order to justify getting more and more and more, justifying the DEI programs, justifying turning a blind eye to when you see crimes against white people because it's racist, justifying open borders and all these nonsensical things. And we need to be able to say, yes, many things that the British have done have been absolutely horrible in the past, as has every country in the past done horrible things. But there are also some fantastic things that the British did. There are some fantastic things that individual Europeans and British people have done around the world. And at the end of the day, we need to look forward and move on and try to do better with our lives today.